Thank you. Ezu. Hey. Thank you very much, all of you. Chairman of the Council of Elders of our great party, members of the Council of Elders, National Executive Committee members, our running mate for the 2020 election, leader of the NDC group in Parliament, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, and your members of Parliament, our national chairman, our general secretary, fellow colleagues from sister parties, members of the NDC diaspora who have paid airfares to be here with us. I appreciate you, and delegates. I wish to warmly welcome all of you to this 10th Congress of the National Democratic Congress. Let me begin by expressing my appreciation to our sister parties for the fraternal messages that they brought. I think the messages were well thought through, and I consider them to be the keynote addresses of this Congress. Thank you very much, members of our sister parties. I start this speech with one quotation from the Bible, and that's Romans 8:31. And it says, "If God be for us, who can be against us?" And then another quote from a very famous hymn, "Begone Unbelief," and that is the end of the first stanza, which says, "With Christ in the vessel, I smile at the storm." Delegates, ladies and gentlemen, all too soon, 4 years have elapsed since we last gathered to elect leaders to various national executive positions of the party. With that mandate having expired and as required by our Constitution, we have gathered here once again at the Accra Sports Stadium to elect another crop of leaders into office to manage the affairs of this party for the next 4 years. Today's election represents the final piece that will complete the party's management and administrative structure, and it comes after an elaborate and comprehensive restructuring and reorganization exercise spanning the last 2 years. In that period, we have democratically elected over 300,000 branch executives, over 7,000 constituency executives, and 300 regional executives. Exactly a week ago today, the National Youth and Women's elections were held successfully in Cape Coast, and I wish to use this opportunity to congratulate all who took part in that exercise. To those who won the elections, I say well done. And to those who could not realize their objectives of occupying national executive positions, I congratulate you nonetheless, for it takes real courage to step up to the plate and offer yourself for leadership in any organization. You live to fight another day. I note that in the period preceding those elections and its immediate aftermath, a series of regrettable exchanges ensued which threatened to detract from the larger objective of consolidating our front and preparing for the greater task of wresting the leadership of this country from this bungling and inept NPP government. I have, in conjunction with various elders of the party, moved to resolve the differences that gave rise to these exchanges, and I'm gratified to see that calm and normalcy has gradually returned to the youth front of our party. I'll reiterate the counsel I gave to those involved in these exchanges that victory or defeat internal contests should not provide the basis for feuds, as they serve no purpose than advancing the interests of our opponents. The NDC possesses adequate organizational capacity and acumen to resolve internal disputes. Hence, it should be possible to iron out our differences of any sort emanating from any form of contest without waging a war of attrition against each other. I've observed, though to a much lower extent, similar sharp rhetoric and exchanges in some of the contestations leading up to today's election. And I want to urge an appeal for restraint and demonstration of maturity, which we have exhibited many times over, even as we go through today's important exercise. I expect that the period during and after these elections would be peaceful and cordial, and that we can immediately set about the task of preparing the party to our next power from the MPP to offer sound and proper governance for this country. This party brims with the democratic spirit, and we have withstood many intense and highly competitive elections, and we have emerged unscathed. Perhaps the most memorable of these elections, internal elections, was the 2011 presidential primaries, which was famously dubbed the Fonka Games. While speaking at that primary in Sunjani, at the time I was the Vice President of the Republic, I had chosen to tell our teaming party supporters a legendary folk tale of the three birds, Tika, Taka, and Gangale, who through cooperation and unity gained prominence and fame in their community through their harmonious rendition of melodious tunes. With their three different voices rising in unison, they wowed their audiences with their superlative performances. No sooner had they achieved fame than arrogance, pride, and envy caused them to go their separate ways. Now their combined voices, which once rose in those melodious tunes, gave way to solitary, jangling, and discordant sounds, which drew them scorn and opprobrium from the same crowd that had doted on them previously. They soon fell from their lofty perch as the most admired group in their community. The gravamen of that tale, I told over a decade ago, is that in unity lies strength. And this still rings eternal, and it appropriately captures the danger of allowing ourselves to be torn apart by avoidable conflict and disunity. Individual aspirations and interests must be subsumed under the larger interest of the NDC and our dear country Ghana, which is in dire need of rescue from the hopelessness and the dark abyss that we have been thrown into by this government. What is taking place today is not just an election to determine who occupies what position in the top echelons of the NDC. What we're doing here today would amount to a declaration of intent by us to lead the broad masses of Ghanaians in one big push to dislodge this government, which has been abject and dismal in the governance of this country at the next polls in 2024. This is an absolute national imperative, and we cannot fail at it. At this point, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to appreciate the hundreds of thousands of friends, supporters, and members who responded to my call to support our fundraising for this 10th National Delegates Congress. Even though our call for support came rather late, I'm happy to announce to you that through small mobile money payments of 10 Ghana cedis each, donations and deposits into our National Congress account, we received a total of 1,083,000 cedis in 12 days. This is a demonstration of the love Ghanaians generally and members of the NDC have for our party and the worthy cause we are embarked on. I also wish to express my appreciation through this medium to other donors who wish to remain anonymous, but who helped us to make up the shortfall in our budget for this Congress. We also received material donations, including bags, thousands of bags of water, rice, event logistics, and other non-monetary gifts to support the Congress. To all such donors, I stand on behalf of the party and say to you, Ayiko, thank you. I want to use this opportunity to demonstrate to all that there's a fundamental responsibility on our part, especially as executives and party supporters, to help finance the party. We cannot leave party financing on the shoulders of just a few people. To buttress this point, I wish to pay tribute and salute our chairman of Trifu Ati Mokwa constituency in the Central Region, Mr. Hakim Adai, who I noticed while going through the list of people who donated to this Congress. Mr. Hakim Adai, chairman of Ati Mokwa Central Region, made a cash donation of 10,000 Ghana cedis through his local GCB branch to our Congress account. Mr. Hakim Adai, I salute you. Thank you very much. And I wish to personally meet you, to shake hands with you after this opening ceremony. So look out for me. Ladies and gentlemen, the good people of Ghana have suffered 6 years of appalling misrule, corruption, waste, arrogance, nepotism, and abuse of office, human rights violations, and economic mismanagement never before seen in our history. Pain and anguish have swept through the land and left in their wake a people buffeted on all fronts who need all the inspiration and hope we can muster. 6 years of reckless and irresponsible mismanagement of the economy has rendered our people broken and struggling to survive from one day to the next. The Akufo-Addo and Bawumia government have supervised the worst economic conditions in several decades and brought upon us hardship that an entire generation of our population has never witnessed before in all our existence. The life savings of Ghanaians, their business capital, their pensions, and the very survival of our commercial banks and insurance companies are threatened by the first debt restructuring ever undertaken by our country. And this is because of the reckless borrowing of the finance minister and the economic management team led by His Excellency the Vice President. 0% in 2023, a measly 5% and 10% interest will be paid in 2024 and 2025, respectively, with minimal installments of principals due for payment to be made over a 5 to 15-year period. Meanwhile, several individuals and pensioners cannot guarantee that they will be alive by 2037 to see the final 41% maturity of their principal. Our dear country Ghana, that has been a poster boy of democracy, good governance, and economic progress, stands on the brink of bankruptcy and economic ruin. Yet, we have a president who enjoys spouting the rhetoric of self-respect and restraint from begging Western nations for support. And yet he has spent the last several weeks on the telephone with Western leaders, asking them to beg the IMF to grant Ghana the recently announced staff-level agreement for an extended credit facility. Our dear nation has never been so put to shame and come close to being a beggar nation as we are today. And yet, this is the same person who only yesterday said, Ghana enye ohiamai, yet isikaso ekom diye. This NPP government has done the worst to erode the belief of Ghanaians in our democracy. Many Ghanaians see their situation as hopeless and are willing to take the hazards of dying in the Mediterranean Sea or electrocution on a high-tension transmission line in Kaswa. But countrymen and women, let us not despair. They say the darkest hour is before the dawn. And they also say, in every adversity, we find opportunity. And Bob Marley also says, when one door is closed, another is open. Ghana shall rise to a new dawn. Part of the process of turning the fortunes of our dear nation around are what is taking place today at this Congress. Ghanaians are looking up to us not to become the next government by default as a result of the failure of this administration. Ghanaians are looking up to us to be the choice because we're a better alternative. We must not win by default of the lapses of this administration, but we must win because we are the better alternative to govern this country. And I've heard many people say that when we win power, we must do exactly as the MPP are doing. But I dare say, there's no use fighting for political power. Must be the government of infrastructure. The NDC must be the government that protects human rights. The NDC must be the government of economic prosperity and growth. The NDC must be the government of modesty and humility. The NDC must be the government that fights corruption and dissipation of public funds. The NDC must be the government of prudence and accountability. Our work is therefore cut out for us in the days, weeks, and months immediately following this National Congress. And therefore, we can ill afford to spend any time on unhelpful internal bickering. Let us get off our marks immediately and convince Ghanaians that in addition to our superior record in governing to that of the MPP, that we are ready to be the alternative government come 2025. The first step towards doing that is by proving that we can manage our own internal affairs and hold ourselves to an acceptable standard of behavior. And that is why I wish to reiterate my call on all of us here to be mindful of our actions and play our roles at this Congress peacefully so that we may leave here a more united and stronger force capable of leading the efforts to save Ghana from certain collapse under this MPP administration. I wish also at this juncture to repeat my position of neutrality in the various contests. Let me say again that I do not have any preferred candidate for any position. And I urge all delegates to vote based on your own appreciation of the messages of aspirants and their conviction about their capacity to work in the larger interest of the party. I stand ready to work with all those you elect to lead our great party and to contribute my quota to our objectives, which primarily revolve around saving this country and building the Ghana we want. We've gone through and passed this test many times, and I trust that we'll pass it again with flying colors this time too. Let me finally wish all aspirants the very best of luck as you go into this contest. All of you are winners in your own rights, and the courage you have demonstrated by offering yourselves in service to NDC and by extension Ghana is worth commending. As with the very nature of contest, there will be winners and there will be those who are unsuccessful in their attempt. I urge the winners to be gracious and conciliatory, and I also encourage those who do not make it to take it in their stride and remember that there's more than enough room for everyone to contribute towards the success of the NDC. Whether or not you hold elected office in the NDC, there will always be a role for you to play in the scheme of things. And finally, before I take my seat, I wish to thank the Electoral Commission for coming to supervise this election in this Congress. I wish to thank the Ghana Police Service for providing security for this Congress. And I wish to thank the media who are giving us live coverage for all that you're doing for us. May God bless you, and I wish everyone a successful Congress. Thank you very much. I wish to mention the names of some of our fallen comrades, after which we shall observe a 1-minute silence for them. And the first on the list is His Excellency J. John Rawlings, the founding father of the NDC. The late John E. Tamils, former President of the Republic of Ghana. His Excellency Kwesi Emisa Atta, my Vice President. Captain Chikata, Justice D.F. Annan, Mr. P.V. Obeng, Mr. Nathan Kwao, Professor Kofi Awono, our former chairman, Dr. Kwabena J, our former chairman, A.A. Munufie, and Alhaji Isifu Ali, Mr. J.H. Ouswe Champong, former majority leader, Mr. Farouk Brahma, Alhaji Kojo Mahama Adam, Mr. Fred Ohenekina, Ambassador D.S. Boateng, Dr. Mary Grant, Dr. Atokwashi, Victor Salome, Dr. Kaiko, Albert Bosomtwe-Sam, Ama Beniwado, Difa Ativo, Samuel Nyama Donko, Jijote, Hajia Jigbodi, Lionel Mobila, Oscar Meyedowo, Harry Sawyer, Charlie P., Alhaji Mobila, Northern Regional Chairman. And only yesterday, I hear we lost Farouk of Tamale, a very outspoken supporter of NDC. And of course, we also remember the 8 Ghanaians who were murdered in cold blood during the last elections of the year 2020. May God grant all of them, and the many others that I have forgotten to mention, may God grant them peaceful repose. And at this juncture, I ask all of you to rise wherever you are. Rise wherever you are. It also includes Professor Kwesi Botwe, who we lost only recently, Professor Kwesi Botwe. And so I ask you to rise wherever you are, and let's observe a minute's silence for them. Please, no vuvuzelas. Please silence, 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 silence. May the souls of the faithfully departed rest in peace. I thank you very much.